Hello, One Great Earth. My name is Dan. Thank you for joining me tonight. In the show, we're going to look a little bit at Florida as they had massive amounts of precipitation that caused a lot of flooding. And here we see some people making the best of it, as in Florida only they could. Is that a canoe? Florida. People driving through it non-stop is Florida. My voice threw me off when I hear myself. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit more through X. Ponds. Ooh, an osprey right here. You see that? Little osprey. There's the video. That's wicked flooding. Why are people driving so much still? How are they still able to drive in all this water? Well, he's pushing it, so he's not. It's from the New York Times. Heavy rains batter South Florida, closing roads and grounding flights. The deluge, which began Tuesday afternoon, dumped more than 10 inches in some areas and is expected to continue through Thursday, forecasters said. Heavy rains battered South Florida on Wednesday, closing major roads, stranding vehicles, forcing delays and cancellations at airports, and causing flash flooding in the Fort Lauderdale and Miami areas. The severe weather, which began on Tuesday, is the result of a cold front parked over parts of the state that has dumped more than 10 inches of rain in some areas. Anthony Rainey's, a senior meteorologist with the National Weather Service in Miami, said Wednesday afternoon, "It must be terrible not to be able to say climate change in Florida, especially on TV as a meteorologist. Can't say that this storm would have happened regardless, as it does happen, but the intensity that it happens is tremendously stronger, tremendously worse. And it's always going to be measured in matters of worse, because if a storm, the same storm that hits every year, like clockwork, and then you get one that hits, but it's 3 to 5 times worse, that's enough to throw off all of what we understand to be normal. Your car is floating around. It only takes 3 inches of water, but we're seeing 3 feet of water. It is completely different than talking about just a little flash flooding. We're talking about cars bobbing up and down. Very dangerous because you're connected to the ocean. Like, there could be some serious water and waves coming through here. Flash flooding has been reported from Fort Lauderdale to downtown Miami, he added, noting that major urban areas, including some homes, have been inundated with water and that many vehicles have been stranded. As of Wednesday evening, more than 10 inches of rain had fallen in Hollywood, Florida, more than 9 inches in Fort Lauderdale, and about 8 inches in Miami. The Weather Service had not received any reports of injuries or deaths. That's good. Part of Interstate 95 was shuttered in Broward County because of the flooding. Broward? I think it's Broward County because of the flooding. Hundreds of flights at Miami International Airport and Fort Lauderdale Hollywood International Airport were either delayed or canceled, according to FlightAware.com. Roadway at the Fort Lauderdale Hollywood Airport could also become inundated, the airport warned. Footage posted to social media appeared to show swamped shopping strips and cars submerged in the floodwaters, including at an indoor parking lot. On Wednesday, Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida declared a state of emergency in Broward County, Collier, Lee, Miami-Dade, and Sarasota counties. He cut storm drain funds. Remember that. Remember that. He doesn't want anybody to say that climate change exists, and he cut storm funds. Now he's going to declare state of emergencies for flooding. The declaration gives emergency managers the authority to allocate resources, including personnel, to respond to flooding and other impacts of severe weather. Mayor Dean J. Trantalis of Fort Lauderdale said on social media that resources were being mobilized across the city. If possible, please avoid driving. It's crucial to never attempt to drive through high water. Everybody's driving through this high water. It looks insane. The city of Fort Lauderdale said in an email Wednesday night that it had responded to multiple stranded vehicles and that several city roads were impassable. Flood warnings will continue through Thursday morning, the city said. On Wednesday afternoon, the Weather Service issued its highest level of warning, a flash flood emergency, for a stretch spanning from North Miami to Diania Beach. The amount of rain that was falling was quickly overwhelming the drainage systems. It was becoming a life-threatening situation. And there you have it. Those are drainage systems. Cut funding. They get overwhelmed. Like the cars of a train, storm after storm, moved from the west coast to the east coast of the southern Florida Peninsula on Wednesday, soaking an already saturated from the rain. An area already saturated from the rain. Forecasters warned the line of storms was slowly meandering to the south and expected rain to continue into the evenings in areas already in flash flood warnings, including Miami. 1 to 3 inches of rain could continue to fall per hour. Excessive rain is forecast to get on Thursday across southern Florida, though exactly where the heaviest rain will fall isn't certain. Considering the amounts that fell Wednesday and the repetitive nature of the rainstorms, forecasters from the Weather Prediction Center said that the more flash flooding was possible late Thursday morning through the afternoon. That was New York Times. This is an article from CNN. Heavy rain and life-threatening flooding hit South Florida, prompting the governor to declare an emergency. So this is pretty much the same. A month's worth of rain in one day. 10 inches of rain. Your wheels don't have to be that submerged to start floating. It's going to have to be weight to be able to push it down, the bobs to be able to drive. So driving in high water is an illusion because you're not really driving, you're treading water. You're not really going to be able to brake or control your vehicle. Don't do it. It might seem like a good idea as soon as it's working for a minute, but that's as much as it'll do is work a minute. I've seen people, I used to work county road commissions. I used to see some pretty wild sights when it comes to what people think they can do to get away with something or get through something or get past something. I'm talking including holes. Just really insane sights. I should share some of those at some point, but for another day. As of right now, I mean, I would be part of the county crew that would come out and use this giant suction vehicle to gather up all the water. And that was flooding like in the streets, but not like this. This is kind of flooding that I don't think I've experienced personally. It's madness. I remember seeing some kind of disturbance over Florida that had a 10% chance of forming. Just because we're looking at weather, let's go look at this. Okay. Oh, okay, so tomorrow, Florida is going to continue getting pummeled the next 2 days of rain. Almost all of Florida. This is CBSNews.com. Maps and photos show massive rainfall in Florida as flooded communities face ongoing downpours. Really just more about the... Officials said around 20 inches of rain had fallen on Thursday afternoon in Hallandale Beach near Fort Lauderdale. This is dense. Car stranded. Just can't drive through your car. I don't understand how the engine is still working after it's halfway submerged in water. Like, there is so much that goes on in a car that if it gets dunked in water, I mean, it's bad for the electronics. People walking is past their hips, you see that? That is high water. Past your waist. It only needs to be past your ankles to knock you down and carry you away. Just trust, as soon as you hit the ground, you're already moving at the speed that water's going to take you. But with a current coming through water this high, would knock you right off, your feet. It's very dangerous. Well, you see, this water wasn't released from a dam nearby, so it's not coming at people with force. It's coming up from the bottom up. A big difference. This is a graphic showing just how much rain fell in South Florida, which more rain will fall tomorrow, and more rain will fall the day after that. They're going to be inundated continually. And it's widespread rain, it's not just these little storms either. Breaking records, flood watches. Yeah, okay. Florida's not doing too good right now, parts of Florida. Because these people that just came out of, like, not even a year ago, having a flood, they just rebuilt. Now it's happened again. It's not just the cars in the street, you see. Businesses, it's all kinds of homes that are different sizes and shapes and locations, and it's a lot to deal with. To think that we don't have some kind of flooding scale like we do for tornadoes, because tornadoes, the EF scale is based on the damage the tornado is estimated to have caused. Flooding should have the same estimation for the damage it's caused, because everything has to go through insurance, everything has to go through proper channels. So there's so much paper, it's just have to take a look. I'm sorry, I digress. Let's see here. Looking at this, it's massive flooding. And this person's only in ankle deep water, but that's water, the rain is still coming down real heavy, as you can see. And by the time this person makes it down the street, it can be up to their hips. That is just wild to think just how fast water can come up underneath you. Don't open those doors. Alright, this next article we have is from natureworldnews.com by Paul Moster. I'm going to pronounce it Moster. Like monster. Moster. Paul Moster. I can't say it another way now. Monster. It's just an interesting name. I don't know why. I'm just fixated on it right now. Oversight and conservation models. Endangered species models fall short without human activity consideration. This should be a huge, yeah. This should be not something radical to say, but it really is in hindsight, because thinking about all of endangered species models, such as howler monkeys in Mexico, it doesn't do any justice for the human activity consideration. Let's go into this article here. This is researchers at Michigan State University have highlighted a significant oversight in conservation models: the unrepresentation of human influence. Despite the undeniable impact of human activities on the natural world, current models used to predict and plan for the trajectories of endangered species seldom account for the human footprint.
Trajectory.
This revelation, published in the journal Nature, Ecology, and Evolution, calls for a paradigm shift in how we approach conservation science. The elephant in the room: human impact. Conservation models, known as species distribution models, SDMs, are crucial tools for predicting the future habitats of species. They consider various environmental factors like climate and natural habitat. However, the study led by PhD candidate Veronica Franz and her advisor Guago Jack Lu found that only 11% of the revived studies included human activities as a factor. This discrepancy poses a risk of false optimism regarding the effects of human activities compared to climate change, a new reality in conservation modeling. The study analyzed over 12,854 published studies covering more than 58,000 species worldwide. The findings were alarming. Nearly half of the articles projecting future climates held human predictors constant over time. This assumption that human pressures will not change is unrealistic in our human-dominated era. The researchers argue that to create accurate visions for endangered species, models must incorporate the ever-changing and diversifying human-species interactions. The gap in research. The research uncovers decades-long gaps in conservation studies, emphasizing the need for updated models that reflect our current reality. The study proposes a new way of creating accurate predictions for endangered species, urging the scientific community to include human activities in their models. Call for change. The study serves as a call to action for ecologists, conservation biologists, and policy makers. By integrating human influence into SDMs, we can better inform conservation strategies, policy planning, and management decisions. The authors present 15 questions to advance ecological theory and methods, aiming to improve real-world applications and outcomes. Why is this research important for the future of biodiversity? The research emphasizing the importance of including human factors in biodiversity conservation is crucial for several reasons. Here they are. Comprehensive understanding. It provides a more comprehensive understanding of the threats to biodiversity. By acknowledging human impact, we can create more accurate models that reflect the real-world scenarios species face. Yes. Informed decision-making. Policymakers and conservationists can make better informed decisions when human activities are considered. This leads to more effective conservation strategies that can address the root causes of biodiversity loss. Predictive accuracy. I think this was supposed to be another bold title here. Maybe I should write them. Including human factors in models improves the predictive accuracy of species responses to environmental changes. This is vital for planning conservation efforts in the face of rapid global changes. Resource allocation. Understanding human impact helps in the efficient allocation of resources. Conservation efforts can be directed where they are most needed, avoiding wasted efforts in areas less affected by human activity. Sounds like a good idea. Climate change mitigation. Biodiversity is a key player in climate regulation. Protecting diverse ecosystem helps in mitigating climate change, which in turn preserves biodiversity, a beneficial cycle that is reinforced by considering human factors. Ecosystem services. Biodiversity underpins ecosystem services that are crucial for human survival, such as clean water, air, and food. By incorporating human impact, we ensure these services are maintained for future generations. In summary, this research is important because it calls for a shift in how we approach conservation, urging us to include the significant variable of human influence. This is essential for the future of biodiversity and the continued provision of ecosystem services that are vital for human well-being. The study from Michigan State University is a wake-up call to the conservation world. It highlights the urgent need to reconsider how we model the future of our species on our planet. As human influence continues to shape the natural world, it is imperative that our tools for predicting and protecting biodiversity evolve to include the most significant variable of all, us. Very eye-opening and profound, even though the idea is so simple. Like, do our models really take into account that this forest here isn't going to be here in another year? I don't think so. There's a lot of factors that play into conservation, such as trying to save the trees, particular trees and native trees. But trees can last a very long time, especially olive trees. They can last hundreds of years. But only if you allow it to exist. When you destroy nature, destroy trees, you could be destroying so much of carbon capturing. Like, we want to be carbon neutral, we want native carbon, we want to capture carbon, but we already have trees and leaves doing that already every year. But with the profanely amount of trees that have been reduced over the last 4 or 5 years, like, it is amazing because of the amount of wildfires alone, taking into account of wildfires, human-caused wildfires that cause the species to be driven from their habitats. This is a good article. Michigan State University. Gotta love it. If it did not click yet, I am from Michigan. You know, the hand thing. That's Michigan. Now, speaking of adaptations and species modeling, This next article that we have here is from earth.com. This is by Rodialan Utol, staff writer at earth.com. This goes a lot with the article that we just read regarding endangered species and human influence being a huge factor that needs to be interpreted in the results and the data that we get whenever we look at these animals and their habitats and where they're going. And now, fish. Fish are migrating towards the poles to escape warming waters. Now, we don't have to try very hard to look at warming waters, because as soon as we turn it on, you can see it everywhere. The world, the oceans are heating up. And as water heats up, water molecules expand. And that expansion of water is what will cause rapid sea level rise in a very short amount of time, because you're just dealing with bloop. So even if the amount of water is still the same, it's going to rise even if you're not seeing any rain. A river bank will burst its banks without as much as a rain, all due to it just getting an alarming amount of water through it that runs through it. Because you have colder water usually on the very bottom of the river or the ocean. And when that gets flipped upside down, and then there's no cold side anymore, that destroys a lot of the environment that marine animals rely on in that cold section. Just like us, we have a very small breathable surface on the planet. Very small breathable surface on the planet. We can't go any higher and we can't go any lower. We can't breathe in the water and we can't breathe in lower Earth orbit. We can't breathe even in the coldness of the sky as you continue to head up further. It becomes harder to breathe. And now we're seeing it in marine life. It's getting harder for them to breathe. As the water warms up, it becomes more difficult for the fish to get oxygen from the water, especially if the oxygen is displaced. We're looking at probably one of the greatest extinction events to have happened, and it's happening literally right under our nose as we speak, as we have been speaking about these. Alaskan snow crabs were an indicator species. They were in the billions and thought to have no end. 2 years, no crab season. These are big changes that have never happened before, and especially that we can't find these crabs anymore. It's not like people aren't looking for them still, like, oh, they're not in that same spot. No, they're actively looking for Alaskan snow crabs still. They are extinct. Because if the water changed temperatures in the lower level, the lowest level of the water, you have, let's see, this ocean here is gradient temperatures all the way through, and then you have bottom here, and this is the only area that they can survive. They go up any higher or the water gets any warmer. That barrier of cold water to warm water is what protects all these sea creatures, crustaceans, and all the things that live on the ocean floor majority of their life, is predators. The predators will be able to just come down and devour them. Manta rays will feast on crabs when the time is right, when the water is right. But in the water is always right, the predators will not turn it off. We're talking about extinction events and just madness that we can barely comprehend right now because we're so preoccupied with human affairs that we're completely ignoring the planet, and it's telling us things are wrong. Things are very wrong. We are in the 12th month of the hottest month in a row. I would say that this year is going to be the hottest year on record, But last year was already the hottest year on record, so it would be kind of cheating to just make, an educated guess like, oh, okay, it's going to be hotter. It's going to be hotter. Every day it's getting hotter. And it's huge portions of the world. It's not just the United States and Florida and Arizona. No, it's Colorado, it's Texas, it's Missouri, it's Louisiana. All these states are heating up, even Michigan, even Ohio, the Valley. You're getting a lot of values above 90 degrees to 100 degrees, easy. And then you're not even talking about humidity. You're not talking about the dryness level. We're not talking about anything yet. We're just talking about the actual heat, temperature, and the damage that it can cause. Because what happens if parts of Arizona become 115 to 100 degrees during the daytime, and then there's a big blackout or rolling brownouts? People can't survive in a building when it's 105 degrees. You mark my words, it's 115 degrees. Some of these buildings are not designed to be this hot. And it's scary. I know people all over. And the reports of the heat is just unrelenting, and it's just beginning. This is just starting. This heat wave is just picking up. Why do I know that? Because in the same countries adjacent to us on the planet, or parallel to us even, their summers have picked up horribly. They become early, hotter, and drier. We're seeing huge amounts of fluctuations, and some that are just too great to ignore. Now let's see, look at this. This is going to rip. You see this here. This is the Gulf of Mexico. This is bleaching level alert. Level 1 and level 2. Level, I believe, the bleaching watch, bleaching warning, just all bleaching warning. So the Gulf of Mexico in the next week is going to be heavily bleached. Now, what that means is that the water temperature is rising so much that the coral reef become bone white. They become bleached, because what is heat stroke in for a human being is what happens to coral reef when it lets go of the algae. When it separates, you get an algae bloom. But this is bad for fishing. This is bad for industry. This is bad for all sorts of industries that rely on the Gulf of Mexico for any reason whatsoever. It's the biggest Gulf that I've seen so far. I believe Persian Gulf was the other Gulf that I've seen that was heavily bleached. Now, we don't know if the coral reef comes back, if it wakes back up, if it, whatever process is happening that causes it to go bone white as it waits to recover. You've seen coral reef recover before. It's only seen pictures and video just demonstrating. But nothing like this, nothing like in the Gulf of Mexico. It feels like it's just right at your back door. I continue. Fish are migrating towards the poles to escape warming waters. Marine fish species are rapidly migrating towards the poles in response to the challenges of global warming. This concerning trend was unveiled in a study led by Tel Aviv University. The research, spearheaded by PhD student Shahir Chakane and Professor Jonathan Bellmaker, uncovers a stark decline in marine fish populations as they migrate poleward in an attempt to escape rising sea temperatures. This international effort, published in the prestigious Nature in Ecology and Evolution, challenges the previously held notion that rapid geographic shifts could be a lifeline for a species under the threat of global warming. Deep dive into migrating fish populations. The study meticulously analyzed over 2,572 fish populations across 146 species, primarily from the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The vast dataset was drawn from two global databases, one tracking fish population sizes over time and the other documenting the velocities of range shifts among marine fishes. The findings reveal an alarming trend. Species that migrate faster towards the poles are experiencing more significant declines in population abundance. Consequences of these rapid shifts. Professor Bellmaker sheds light on the motivation behind the research. Climate change triggers a survival response in animal species, prompting them to move towards cooler areas. Our goal was to understand the repercussions of these fish migrating. Surprisingly, we found that the quicker these fish move towards the poles, the more their populations decline, suggesting difficulty in adapting to new environments, he concluded. Our observation includes that species like the European sea bass, which shift their geographical range swiftly towards the poles, are more prone to losing their abundance. Moreover, populations closer to the poles, which one might assume to be less affected by climate change, are actually facing more rapid declines compared to those near the equator within the same species. Conservation and the future of migrating fish. These insights are crucial for environmental policymakers and conservationists. The study advocates for a reassessment of conservation statuses. This really goes in key with the article we just read here just a moment ago about endangered species models fall short without human activity consideration. Wow. Proposed strategies include implementing fishing limits to reduce additional pressures on these vulnerable populations. This is when you are starting to see violence. You start putting restrictions and more fishing restrictions, you're going to see more violence. You're going to see a lot of weird violence. Fisherman violence. Like, what are they talking about? Like, you just can't fish in these zones or have these fish at all. It doesn't matter. More rules and limits on fishing is only going to cause more bloodshed. It's nuts. Conservation and the future of migrating fish. These insights are crucial for environmental policymakers and conservationists. The study advocates for a reassessment. I think I read this already. Proposed strategies include implementing fishing limits to reduce additional pressures on these vulnerable populations. Professor Bellmaker concludes, contrary to the belief that rapid range shifts protect against population decline, our findings suggest that species making these shifts are more vulnerable to climate change. This vulnerability underscores the need for special attention and further research into the causal relationships affecting marine species beyond fish. This study marks a pivotal step in understanding the complex dynamics of climate change and marine life migration. As we continue to witness the unfolding consequences of global warming, research like this provides valuable insights for shaping future conservation strategies, ensuring the survival of marine biodiversity in the face of unprecedented environmental challenges. More about the consequences of warming oceans. Oceans, covering more than 70% of the Earth's surface, act as a massive heat sink, absorbing and redistributing heat around the globe. However, this vital function comes at a cost. As mentioned above, recent decades have seen a significant rise in ocean temperatures, a direct consequence of climate change driven by increased greenhouse gas emissions. This warming poses a severe threat to marine ecosystems, affecting species diversity, population distributions, and the health of marine habitats. You know, fish and sharks, they have nurseries too. Not all sharks just dump their eggs into a crevice and go. Disrupted ecosystems and migrating fish species. As ocean temperatures climb, marine species face critical survival challenges. Many organisms, from tiny plankton to large fish, corals, and marine mammals, have adapted to live within specific temperature ranges. When their habitats warm beyond these comfort zones, these species must migrate to cooler waters or face population declines or even extinction. Warming oceans disrupt the delicate balance of marine ecosystems. Predatory relationships, breeding grounds, and migration patterns honed over millennia are now changing. For instance, coral reefs, the ocean's biodiversity hotspots, suffer from coral bleaching when water temperatures rise, weakening those vital ecosystems. Impact on fisheries and global food security. As discussed above in the study from Tel Aviv University, the migration of fish populations towards cooler polar regions has significant implications for global fisheries, a crucial source of food and livelihood for billions of people. As fish stocks decline or move from traditional fishing grounds, local communities and entire nations face economic and food security challenges. This shift necessitates adaptive management strategies for fisheries to sustainably manage these changing resources. Compounding the issue of warming is ocean acidification, a result of the ocean absorbed increased levels of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Also, when you trawl the ocean floor with a large net, a weighted down net, when you trawl the ocean floor, you're kicking up carbon dioxide that's been there for millennia, and that takes 9 to 10 years to get back up into the atmosphere. But that doesn't mean it takes 9 to 10 years to come up any higher than that, or any lower than that. We can see a lot of carbon dioxide that is kicked up in parts of the ocean, and this would kill the oxygen in that part of the ocean, the water, and the fish, the marine life, would have to escape for their lives. But that's only if they get an indicator, if they understand that they need to move to cooler water. This is happening all over the world right now. All over Pacific Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, all the seas and oceans. It is, where was it? Yeah, right here. All across the equator, but you see this was half this, the ocean bleaching was half the planet at one point. The northern hemisphere was completely bleached. And the lower hemisphere had its turn. Now it's time for the equator and the Gulf of Mexico. These are dark times. Dark times for humanity, for science, progress, for life. But it's not something people take into account, that our own undoing is going to be our hubris. Like, what do we think is going to save us at the last minute? Nothing. The world is heating up. We can prove it just by going to climatecentral.org. See here. Climate shift anomaly of 9.5 degrees. It's 9.5 degrees hotter in New Mexico in this region here than it would have been at this point last year. As normal. Tomorrow is just going to be even once it pops up. Okay, not too bad. Saturday. Yeah, it's picking up again. Especially over Florida, over Georgia. Seeing a lot of climate shifting. You're seeing more likely of a higher temperature than would be normal for this time of year, for that time of the region, that time of the country. Conservation and future implications. The impacts of warming oceans underscore the urgent need for global action to mitigate climate change. Reducing greenhouse gas emissions, adopting sustainable fishing practices, and protecting marine habitats are critical steps in safeguarding our oceans. Furthermore, increasing research and monitoring efforts can provide the necessary insights to guide policy and conservation strategies, ensuring the resilience of marine ecosystems in a warming world. In summary, the rising temperatures of our oceans signal a clear warning. Without concerted efforts to address climate change, the rich tapestry of marine life upon which humanity so heavily depends faces an uncertain future. It is a global challenge that requires immediate and sustained action from all sectors of society. That's chilling. Very chilling. All right. Got to change my headline for the middle one there, but that's fine. And I thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like the stream, subscribe to the channel. It helps me out immensely and keeps me motivated. As of right now, my ads account is suspended and my account is kind of soft lock. I'm still able to stream, at least. Going through customer support, emailing with Google, a lot of automation to get through. So hopefully, I see that, because I am not monetized. I make no money off these videos. So the idea that I'm shut out from that isn't terrible right now, but it's gonna take some time to get it back. There's a few things that I have to change with Google to be able to change in my YouTube account, be able to make sure this doesn't happen again. But it's gonna take some time. As soon as they respond to me, I should get that change, and then I'll be able to appeal my suspension. But I can't appeal my suspension right now for reasons I'm discussing with Google about. Very strange, but I'm still able to stream, still able to do everything as normal. I just won't, well, I wasn't really doing anything different. I would spend like $2 or $3 and throw it at a video for AdSense, but I wasn't doing AdSense in the back end of AdSense. I would do it in the promotion tab in the back end of YouTube Manager, Channel Manager, which means that I don't get the AdSense campaigns, which means I can't appeal the whenever they're disapproved. It's a whole thing. So if I want to make ads, I gotta go through the whole laborious task of creating them within AdSense itself instead of the streamlined new feature that they put in. Makes sense, but if I want to be able to go back and say, hey, this wasn't electioneering in the United States, this certificate's wrong, I don't do politics. Even though there might be some political things on here, majority of the channel is focused on conservation, nature, and just the human impact and the human experience of nature. Human impact on nature and the human experience of nature. Also, we're taking into account that things are looking rough. And it is a good time to discuss the bleaching of the oceans here. And we don't know what's coming. I don't. I just know that with other parts of the planet that have had this kind of bleaching, it is very detrimental for all marine life and everything around the coastline. You start getting acidification and oxygen having issues, warmer waters. temperature up here in the northeast of, this is weird. This is usually pretty cool up here. The sea temperature right here is like Baltimore to Long Island. Usually a lot cooler. We're seeing it warming up. One of the last parts of the sea, last parts of the ocean that have any kind of cooling water. This is going to be something. We're going to start seeing coral reef bleaching all along the northeast United States. That's, as far as I know, it's new, because I don't recall ever seeing bleaching up here so far. And the waters have been unusually cool for a long period of time. Now they're heating up. It is very hot in the water here in the Gulf of Mexico. Almost 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees Celsius. Very warm, very hot water. And it's meeting with a lot of bleaching. Alright, I thank you for joining me tonight in this late stream. Do appreciate it. Thank you very much to everybody that sent me words of encouragement and wisdom regarding my position here while I wait for YouTube to figure it out. But it's just a whole bunch of people that are erroneously reporting, and I think it'll be fine. But until then, I'm not going to worry about it any longer. It is what it is, and as long as I can stream still under my account, that's what's important. Thank you again. Please have a good night and take care.